Hello and welcome to another video. So we're covering an interesting rotation Haven deck today. This one mainly piqued my interest because it's different to pretty much every single Haven deck I have seen, at least for a very long time, and I was interested in how it played mostly. So after playing around with it a little bit, it's taken a fair bit to adjust to this playstyle of deck, as you can't play it as just a full-on control deck, as it doesn't tend to work. You really want to be forceful and aggressive, constantly putting something on board all the time, and being able to deal with your opponents at the same time, which is something that I'm just not used to with Haven, as usually you prioritize clearing your opponent's board till you can drop those big threats, whereas this likes to just kind of throw things out there that are kind of middle ground and really deal that kind of damage. So things like Legendary Fighter are good bait. That's what you use that for 99% of the time. If you ever got this thing off, it's nearly an instant game over for your opponent. Outside of that, most things are pretty straightforward. I mean, Holy Princess, Princess Snow White, just all those cards. Angelic Idol's one that interested me, and I see why it works, because you are running quite a few decent amulet ones, and with the Summit Temples alone, you can actually proc Angelic Idol fairly easily and get a really nice body out of it. And of course the Heavenly Knight top end, because Summit Temple, you can't really go wrong with Heavenly Knight. Aether is a really good way to pull both Archpriestess and Angelic Knight, sometimes Heavenly Knight if you absolutely need it, but outside of that, Beacon of Salvation being your biggest board clear, and pretty much everything else just kind of working well together, does really nicely. So we're going to get right into it and check it out. So far, I've found this deck does quite well against more small drop aggressive decks. So things like Puppets, Forest, Blood, all those kind of decks don't do great against this, just because they drop a lot of small things and they have to use a lot of things to answer the cards, which is really good for me. Also, since you're ending games around the mid game, you don't always need to go into the super late turn 9, turn 10 plays where Puppet can really just kind of beat you down in one turn. So you can usually put so much pressure down early that it's not an issue. Plus you're running quite decent wards, and they do block out a pretty good amount of damage, honestly. So you can't go too wrong there. So overall, I found that most of the time the Snow White play on 2 is nearly always your ideal play. Legendary Fighter follow-up with the Summit Temple does work fairly nicely though, especially if you are using this really well against Forest. As Legendary Fighter now would only need a spell basically once I use the Snow White. Unfortunately, this Insect Lord though, kind of soul crushing honestly. I mean, we're going to get the Evo effect here, but obviously they plan to bounce that and kill off my Legendary Fighter, so always a disappointment when you lose that Legendary Fighter, but I mean, I'm willing to sacrifice him if it means that I can bait out some cards while keeping a decent board going. So I've also found this Genesis of Legend is an absolutely amazing card for this deck in particular. It does a really nice job at buffing these up, and when you do have Summit Temple down, that damage can exponentially grow. I mean, just look at the Snow White for example. It's already a 2-3 now. It could easily get buffed up a couple more times. Even if the damage is spread out, it's still quite a decent way to play. So we're going to be able to get 3 damage in. We've got a 4-5, we've got a 3-5, 2 cards have Bane. We're already looking at a really solid board. And we've also got Lauren's Iron Fist. I decide to go for that against these matchups a lot of the time, unless it is Blood, where I do tend to want healing, as taking cards out seems to be a little bit of a struggle in the early plays, so Iron Fist can just be that kind of tipping point that can help you. I did decide to forego that though in favour of playing this, as we are going to be able to get the statue to go off next turn thanks to the countdown on the amulet there going off, so I thought why not do that. That should buy us the time we want. And even if it doesn't, I mean, it's still going to bait some cards, so why not? And there is the Insect Lord. Not quite as good now, especially when we have a Beacon of Salvation follow-up play if we want it, which is probably the best play we can do here, as it will remove both their followers, heal up, get our Summit Temple damage a lot higher, put them at 3, which is respectable, as the 2-3 could potentially kill them. And it does end up leading to their concede anyway, so that's why I really like this statue. But as I mentioned in the beginning, this deck is not simple. It's definitely got its intricacies, and it takes a little bit to get used to. I would say you want to play 10 games-ish before you can kind of start seeing how you should be playing this deck, if you haven't played anything like this before. Even if you have, if it's been a while, it's definitely something you'd have to adjust if you're used to playing just other Havencraft decks like Tenko or just straight Summit Temple, as this deck definitely runs a lot of unconventional cards that you don't see in a lot of Haven decks, or that you would usually see in very different variants of Haven decks. but it does work out pretty nicely when you can get it to go off. So I do prioritize Holy here, going for it right now, because we have got a second one to back this up anyway. And against Blood, you can't really afford to leave nothing on board. And I do decide to go for the Legendary Fighter only because I have the Feather Hourglass. I probably should have attacked with the Legendary Fighter here and sent 2 more damage to the face, but really wasn't up for doing that today. I decided to prioritize the Legendary Fighter even if it was going to cost me. But it doesn't look like it was too big of an issue. Plus, we can go for a Holy Priest, a Genesis of Legend, a quick Evo, and this Bloodcraft player is going to struggle from here on out. Since they haven't really done too much damage to me, and anything they have done can be negated now thanks to the Holy Water. And we have a couple of decent amulets, so they should be able to be pretty decent. For our board state at least. Pure-Hearted Singer, yeah, not too big an issue. I mean, they pretty much sacrificed that there. They haven't been able to build a board, which is what I found this deck is really good at doing. Preventing them from building a board is usually what you want. It does seem to struggle though against some of the bigger drops, as if you don't draw Genesis of Legend, you can struggle really hard against those big drops. Like this Jorm here would normally be hard to deal with, but because we've got the Bane, it's not so bad, even though the Bat now does get its Jorm effect, so a little bit of a trade-off. We can go for a second Idol though thanks to this, so why not? Angelic Idol. Demonic Ram play. Not too surprising, especially now. Crimson Desire. Yep, going for that heal play. And a Gift of Bloodkin. Wow, none of these cards are really a problem for me. So they healed up, no issue. We're going into turn 7 where we don't really have a great option, but that top deck there, Beacon of Salvation, perfect. Couldn't have asked for a better top deck. Getting the heals, getting the removal, exactly what we needed. We also probably could have dealt with them fairly well anyway, removing pretty much everything pretty efficiently, but this was just the easiest way to do it. The draw definitely gave us a lot more stable position. So it looks like they're searching real hard for cards. They did manage to find the Vera, which still isn't going to be enough on its own to really buy them time. As we should pretty much end this game next turn, which they obviously realize and give us the concede. So this is definitely a deck I wouldn't recommend to beginners. It's definitely one that would take a bit of practice to get used to, and probably something that you don't want to be playing as a beginner to start with, but it's got some unconventional cards, it's got some interesting interactions, and I really enjoy seeing that. So hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, hit the like button and subscribe for more content, and you find the deck list in the description below. Till next time, see ya.